Hello, you fun-loving marketers and jolly advertising folk out there. Not that there's a huge amount of fun to be had at the moment, what with horrid COVID and Tier 3 lockdown, where apparently I'm allowed to sleep with my wife, but I will be prosecuted if I play tennis with her. You know, it makes sense. But anyway, on with the show, and first, big thanks to Luke Walker of Weber Shandwick for our cover. Just to say that the cover was printed using the Xerox Eurythenes print system.
Mum, we made the front cover. Yeah, it's great seeing it work on the front cover of the directory. You know, it turned out fantastic. Looks really nice. Chuffed to bits.
Thank you very much, Luke. And later on in the show, we'll be talking to him about the genesis of the campaign, so stay tuned. Before that, though, let's have an argument.
I think that Mark, the Dean of Studies at the SCA, will probably, I hope he'll be nodding in agreement when I say that the point of you being at the SCA is to pick up the skills that will enable you to build brands and sell products and services. What you're doing is an absolutely wonderful thing, because I hope you realize that every time something is sold as a result of you producing a piece of creative work, then somebody else gets paid. Now, Tim and Laura are no doubt going to tell you that you should also be there to promote a social purpose and that your work should be solving social problems, right? Which brings us to our politics. Okay, our politics, we are twice as likely to be left-wing than the mainstream, and people in advertising outnumber people on the left, outnumber people on the right by what would be 4 to 1. Tim runs a Twitter feed which he advertises as the chairman of D&AD, and I'm sure that most people follow him in order to get up to speed with what's happening at D&AD, but he carpet bombs the people who follow him with his political messages. Okay, you are being brainwashed. You are having an orthodoxy imposed upon you, which limits your ability to do your job. And what I would like you to do is to break out of that orthodoxy. Now, I would like the leaders of the industry to actually help you with this and give you the encouragement to do this and give you the freedom to think clearly for yourselves.
So here we have a transcript of Steve Harrison's speech to the incoming students at the School of Communication Arts back in September this year, based on his important new book, Can't Sell, Won't Sell. And over the page, we have the response from Tim Lindsay, the CEO of D&AD.
I'm sure Steve won't mind me saying this, but I've never heard such a load of doctrinaire nonsense in my life. So I'm going to talk about the book. And I'm going to sort of try and unpick some of the arguments in it. Steve, the argument you set out in the book is binary, that agencies are either fully committed to capitalism and growth or so encased in a metropolitan elite bubble that they've forgotten what they're for, what they do, and how they get paid. This is because we're apparently all lefty snowflakes, out of touch with the real world, and in this context, looking for purpose, sustainable growth, ethical practices, more gender balance and better diversity and inclusion is an abdication of our only responsibility, which is to be the rocket fuel of capitalism. That's your quote. Right now, agencies have a fantastic opportunity to regain some credibility and respect and move back up the food chain by giving their clients the right advice at a time when we are all accelerating into our digital futures and no one has a map. Of course, part of that is selling their stuff. But an equally important part is helping them profit and grow in a way that conserves resources for future generations. And single-mindedly being the rocket fuel of capitalism doesn't cut it anymore. We've hidden behind the "we're just advocates" shield for far too long as an industry. We have to become responsible global citizens, and that means facing up to the very real challenges, commercially, socially, culturally, politically, and environmentally. So advertising can be part of the solution, or it can continue to be part of the problem. But that's why D&AD's mission is to stimulate, celebrate, and enable excellence in commercial creativity, not to save the world, but to help the industry do the right things well. For you, apparently, Steve, that is portentous moralizing, as you accuse me of in your book. But for a lot of us, it's simply the right thing to do.
Here, a couple of pages further on, we have my old mate Lazar Dzamic, Mythocracy and Its Perils. Essentially, what Laz is arguing here is that advertising has lost its moral compass, and that as an industry we are as guilty as any of the pollution that besets us today. So on the next page, I write, well, hang on a second, old chap, except I take 800 words to say it. I'm very proud of the fact that we have more editorial content than ever in Directory, even though subscribers will notice that it's thinner. There may be fewer pages, but there's more within it than ever, including a 3-page digest written by the planning guru, the sage, Paul Feldwick, based on his forthcoming book, Why Does the Peddler Sing?, asking the rhetorical question, what is creativity?
Hi, man. This is Cresta's new flavor, black currant. I wonder what... Black currant flavor, huh? It's okay.
And he answers his own question by saying that actually creativity is a lot of the elements you find in showbiz. Essentially, it's about popularity. Why aren't we making ads that people like any longer? And he gives us examples of ads from yesteryear, from my old boss, John Webster, that absolutely were loved by people.
Savor that Johnny Smith's flavor. If you want to do a favor, if you love and adore one for me.
John Smith's draft now has a widget in the can for that just served by the landlord taste. And when you've got a widget, you don't need gimmicks.
Easier said than done. Okay, so Directory is a little skinnier than it used to be. And one of the reasons for that is we've condensed the case studies down to single pages from double page spreads because we want to save a few bob. Now, on the subject of money, one of the first case histories we come across in the new issue is from AKQA. Thanks very much for submitting, guys, for Rolls-Royce, because while we've been getting poorer, it seems the rich have been getting richer. And this special edition Rolls-Royce, of which there were only 100 produced, was a sellout. Amazing. But what else have we got? Well, here's a story. It turns out that researchers from Newcastle University, while exploring the depths of the Mariana Trench, 7 kilometres below sea level, came across a new arthropod. It's a funny little shrimp-like thing. Now, the incredible thing about this is that they discovered it already had plastic inside its stomach.
The German branch of the WWF made history, turning the name of the new species into the message by entering Eurythenes Plasticus into our planet's official taxonomic record.
And we're just making a statement to say that we're now at the point where we're looking at a new species from an unexplored habitat and it's already contaminated with plastic.
Anything to raise awareness of this problem. We've got to do something about it soon. And maybe Laz does have a point. In the advertising industry, are we as guilty as anybody for this form of plastic pollution by encouraging overconsumption? Discuss. Now, talking about the environment, here's another story of environmental protection, this one from BBDO Ecuador, where every Easter, Palm Sunday, is a huge event.
Around 9 million people buy a bouquet of wax palm to be blessed with holy water, endangering the species and the animals that they inhabit, turning faith into an environmental threat. Introducing the Holy Ad. An ad printed with holy water to save the wax palm. In our Easter week edition, working together with the church and offset printing experts, we bless the ink from our ad with holy water. And the ad, when folded, turns into a bouquet just like the wax palm. Giving the congregation an alternative that already has the blessing from God.
And the bit I love most of all is that the ink was mixed with holy water blessed by a bishop. And so you could go to church and you could do whatever you do on Palm Sunday in Ecuador. Directory very rarely features press advertising, but we were very happy to be able to talk about this ad from Buzzman Paris for Burger King. Order from McDonald's. Why? Because the restaurant industry really needs your support. Burger King in the UK ran it the very next day. Other Burger King franchises around the world ran it as well. And that's how you get 500 million media impressions from a single press ad. So don't tell me press is dead. It ain't. Elsewhere in the magazine, we've got Pampers offering hope to the devastating people of Lebanon after the horrible explosion that killed hundreds, wounded thousands, and put 300,000 people out on the streets, out of their homes. Because what happened at the very moment of the explosion was baby George was born.
جورج، جيت على هالدنيا وما كان في أجمل من طلتك. أمك كانت عم تولدك ثواني قبل اللي صار. ثواني بعدها أنت جيت. بين الحياة والانفجار كان في أبطال لابسين أزرق حريصين إنك تنتصر رغم كل شيء. منشكر أمك وبيك لأنه يومتها عطونا هدية كلها أمل. يا أهلا بجورج صغير، يا مية أهلا وسهلا.
On the same subject of hope, Zulu Alpha Kilo in Canada gave us this campaign for Cineplex, keeping a cinema brand alive and meaningful to people even though they can't actually go to the cinema by bringing the cinema to them.
The whole idea that we could help break up the monotony and bring a bit of delight to people who were at home just seemed so great for a brand that we could do that without opening our physical theater doors, but taking those bits of magic and bringing them to people.
Meanwhile, Oreos in Southeast Asia saw lockdown as an opportunity to just actually bring a bit of fun into people's lives.
Oreo Interest Hack, a personalization at-scale campaign made up of 18 pieces of unique content, which got served according to the viewers' interests and searches.
So I caught up with Publicis Indonesia creative director Ravi Shankar and with Mondelez Southeast Asia marketing director Nikhil Rao.
Horror movie enthusiasts got this. This one is for people who like sci-fi movies. Shooting game downloaders saw this. And this one for online board gamers. Whatever people were looking for, Oreo was there. 400 plus assets got served as YouTube pre-rolls, feeds on Instagram and Facebook.
So in this new world, we said if we invest at this time, we can win in the world of snacking. We can become the snack of choice. And with Oreo, which talks to kids and talks to families at home, this was a great opportunity.
Yeah, so the brief was quite challenging. And that time, like everything was shutting down and we wanted to connect emotionally with our consumer, and we knew that consumers are also like in a state of mind that there was fear, there was boredom, there was panic.
To build on what Ravi said, I think, it was an impossible brief. So we said, okay, we need to go on digital. People are in their homes and digital is the best way to reach them. But can we ensure that the cookie, the product is front and center? People can see the branding from the first second, yet tell a story and make people smile. It seemed like an impossible brief, all in 5 or 6 seconds.
It was a kind of shared ambition and always also a mandate from Nikhil's side that let's not bore them with e-commerce. And, if we are in their mind, and if we have encouraged them, and if we're emotionally close during that part, we automatically accept. It's maybe old school of thought, but if the brand is closer to heart, we expected that they will buy Oreo wherever they are, like through e-commerce or through store.
Very early on with Ravi and the team, we took a call that, hey, people don't need preaching to at this time. And what they're looking for is a spot of cheer. They expect Oreo to be Oreo, Cadbury to be Cadbury. And that's why we came up with this campaign. Oreo stands for inspiring people to stay playful while at home, whether they were baking or listening to music or picking up a new hobby. And hats off to Ravi for being able to execute that. So 18 or 20 pieces of creative in the 5 languages of Southeast Asia with different taglines served at different moments, 400 possible permutations and combinations of creative, but done the classical way, done the traditional way, like you would approach a TV ad. It had the entry of the product, it had something that would make you smile, it had a smart tagline, and all of them had very bespoke different taglines. And getting the humor out in Bahasa or Vietnamese or Thai was a massive hurdle, but I think we ticked all the boxes on that. So,
and for me, when we saw the sales is going up by 24% without forcing the e-commerce bit in the digital strategy or communication, it was quite a eye-opener for everybody, that no need to force tactical or do what the industry is doing in terms of secondary and digital strategy, that everything should lead to e-commerce or the selling button. It automatically happened. People got attracted to the brand and they bought it somehow, like online, offline.
We beat Asia Pacific and CPG benchmarks on recall, on message comprehension, and on consideration. We netted out much higher ROI as an internal measure. And overall, not just due to this, but a couple of other things that we have done along with Ravi. Oreo will end the year with high double-digit revenue growth, and we have increased our market share by about 100 basis points.
Hand washing seems to be quite an issue in this issue.
Hack washing is a wearable ink made of Lifebuoy formula, which turns into antibacterial soap on coming in contact with water. So simply by stamping people's hands, we made sure that they also use a germ-killing soap every time they rinse their hands with just water.
In Spain, Cinfa had a similar idea, but they turned packaging into which pharmacists would drop the meds for their customers into soap. And of course, we've got Lifebuoy in the UK. So back to Luke Walker to tell us a little bit about this campaign.
Lifebuoy are a pretty new brand in the UK. I think they had some data, like 60% of parents were really pushing for greater hand hygiene awareness in schools. And they wanted to kind of ingratiate themselves with, families and parents by really honing in on hand hygiene, super relevant in the times we find ourselves in. So that was the brief in a nutshell. Get them column inches, get people reading about the brand, and get mum and dads thinking, Lifebuoy's a brand that takes my children's hand hygiene seriously. The strategy was simple. A lot of brands and agencies are creating work that were really reacting to the COVID situation. And I think because of that, we ended up with a lot of wallpaper, very similar ground, very similar territories. But I think with children as the topic, it allowed us to aim a bit bigger and find a truth that was timeless and not just one that's relevant to the last 12 months. The insight was really simple. I think, James has 4 kids, so the research was done. We just thought, wouldn't it be wonderful to literally see the amount of crazy things that they touch in 24 hours? Because everything that they touch is a reason for hand hygiene. In our idea, I think that the child touched everything from a hamster to a hula hoop. Yeah, I think being able to tap into a timeless human behavior, has allowed the piece of work to stand on its own. It would have been relevant, 2 years ago, 10 years ago, and not just, reacting to COVID. But yeah, I mean, the production team bust a gut really to, make it happen. I'm not sure how they did it, to be honest, to be perfectly honest with you. I think there's something, like I say, instantly rewarding around earned media. Finding out whether your idea worked or not the next day. When you open up a paper, is it in there or not? Because if it doesn't get coverage, then no one sees it. Then it didn't work. So it's a really nice challenge for creative thinking.
Now I've got another question for you, which is very relevant to COVID, which is, I think I'm right in saying that James is in Germany.
He is, yeah.
And you are in?
He is, and I'm London. Well, I'm in Berkhamsted. I live in Berkhamsted, so yeah, we collaborated on this, via a WhatsApp call, which we've actually got really efficient at. It's good fun.
Elsewhere in the forest, I was part of an ad-lib webinar a week ago where the subject was, can you build a brand in digital? But for me, the highlight of the webinar was Emily Bavaro, the head of marketing operations at Newell Brands, talking about the fact that 90% of their spend now is in the digital space, and talking about some of the things that some of her brands have been doing in the last 6 months.
So welcome everyone to AdLib's webinar on can you build a brand on digital? We'll start with Emily Bavaro, who is a VP Marketing Operations and E-Marketing at Newell Brands.
Actually put together this fall, kind of in response to all of our executives going, are we doing any advertising this year? And it's because we've gone digital. And sort of the power of digital is targeting, right? So it's always fun to have to explain to your executives politely why they might not fit into our target demo and might not have been served up our latest ad on social. And what you saw is everything's mobile, right? Everything's digital. One of my first lessons or tips would be, remember as you're moving to digital for your brands that you've got to bring people along in that journey, right? So for us, it was the executives and explaining not only what it is, what's the platform, why we're there, but what do we look like out there? We've got some pretty historic, iconic brands. Coleman, the tent that I'm in right now. I mean, you're talking very, very traditional brands that don't necessarily need to be built, but for sure need to stay relevant, right? And so for us, that's really about finding the trends and the ways to bring those brands into the conversations. So as an example, one of those trends is this Zoom background that I have right now. We created these in the first few weeks. Remember those hopeful weeks of COVID where we said, well, this is a thing that people are going to need really quick. Coleman's about, the outside is calling, right? And many of us are stuck all day inside on calls, but it doesn't mean we're not looking, for inspiration. And so that was one of the ways that we were able to find a trend and let consumers play. And then, the other tip that I would say around digital is it can get really exciting. You can create a ton of content, but you've got to remember it's about showing it to people. So I like to say, get your message right, get the creative nailed in, play around with it, but make sure you leave enough money for the microphone so that we are out there telling people this message on whatever platform fits that message best. And too often we do the photo shoot, we fall in love with the content, and then we throw it up on some of our organic channels and just hope that somebody comes across it someday. The other thing is probably the idea of letting go of creative control a little bit. And so it's taken about 1.5 years of getting folks comfortable relinquishing control to influencers, brand ambassadors, people that love our products almost as much as we do, but have, I think, a closer ear to the consumer and what they're looking for because they're one themselves.
Now, finally, for the most inspiring piece of all, at least to my mind, and this is from TBWA Chart Day New York for Lucasfilms. And what they're doing here is trying to get more people to go and watch a documentary that was made by George Lucas himself back in 2012 called Double Victory. It's the story of the Tuskegee Airmen at war. The entire 90-minute documentary is free to view on the Lucasfilm website, and it's also here on YouTube. And I do urge you to watch it. This is the incredible story of a black squadron, of black pilots and of black support crew in Germany in the Second World War who had to fight two battles. Firstly, with their own prejudiced and divisive air force, and then secondly, with the Luftwaffe. So I'm going to play out on the Tuskegee Airmen.
But as the fighter pilots took on Nazi jets in the skies over Berlin, back home on the ground, their brothers in arms were fighting a very different battle by taking on the United States military itself.
Segregation seemed to be the number one aim of the Army.
When they turned us out of the officers' club, they said, "You have an officers' club. It's right over there. It's a barracks with a ping pong table."
We called it Uncle Tom's Cabin.
We decided to take a stand. It was a matter of pride and a matter of just reaching the end of our rope.
Together, the black aviators in Europe and those in America would wage a two-front war against fascism and racism and help pave the way for a civil rights movement yet to come.